Okay, 20 minutes late, and we are actually here, which is good, considering that all of the other stuff that's had to happen to make this even work. Uh, did that just stop screen share? That's not
Yeah.
what I meant to hit. That is not what I meant to hit. Turn that back on. There we go. All that should be good now. Oh, except for the fact that... Nope, that's exactly how that is. That's just there. My brain was like, oh, that's a white bar. That's not supposed to be there. No, that's exactly supposed to be there. Okay.
I mean, I can see your Streamlabs.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where? You can. They can't. I don't care if you can. That means nothing to me. So, anyway, context. There might need to be some context for this. So, currently, this is another week of me having to work on the house, which means I am over here instead of where I want to be, which is at home with Raz. But, what are you going to do? This time I actually did bring my computer with me. So I'm actually able to do streams and stuff here, and I have my camera and all that. The only thing I don't have is my studio lighting, which is why they have good lighting, and I don't.
Right bar, that's not...
Why?
Sorry.
Why did you do the thing? Oh my gosh. Normally this also wouldn't be problematic because I would just have us all on my camera, and that would be super easy. But Pam is not the streamy type. This is not her wheelhouse.
Listen, you're okay.
It is okay. I love you anyway.
Oh.
Belvedere, no, stop it. Stop the barking. Okay, so also context-wise, the only place that I can get internet here because I don't have a Wi-Fi card in my computer is right next to the router because of the LAN cable. Because I'm right next to the router, I have to be in the living room. Because I have to be in the living room, I have to be here with the dogs who do the loud barking. And because there's construction happening everywhere, the dogs have all the reason in the world to bark. So, this is fun. I'm having fun. Are you guys having fun? Because I'm not having fun.
I'm here to drink some tea and spill some tea.
I'm here to ram my head against a wall because we're dealing with biblical gender roles, which means that I'm already going to be incredibly frustrated. However, I have to deal with this situation as well, which makes things even better. And Ocean is now messaging me, which is great, because No, Ocean. If you're messaging me, I'm killing Facebook. I had it open. I wanted to have it open. I can't have it open anymore. You ruined it for everybody. So, there's my burn for Ocean today. Anywho, this is the 6th episode of Biblical Gender Roles, and now that we're here explaining everything, Raziel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Raziel. I am Cers's partner, at least one of them. My channel is currently dedicated to my past and how I am dealing with that. In the future, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm torn between making like comedy skits of like dumbass things, like just just dumbass woo things where it's like, hey, you have asthma, drown yourself. Because there's actually a movie that says that. So, yeah, it's great. And that's me.
Now, I will say this. If everybody in the chat can please convince Raz to finish working on the video that she's been working on for the past few weeks.
Okay, hold on. They have to know about the video first.
No, they don't. They just have to know that you didn't make a video that you've been saying you'll be making.
The video is about a stream conversation with someone named Jill, or the initials of their... Yeah, whatever. I don't care. He was trying to be an apologetic for pedophilic rape and molestation. So if y'all want to see that episode and see me get mad at that episode, let me know.
Yeah, no, I took part in some of the chat that led to her wanting to make that episode. Now I just want her to actually make the episode because I hold the stance that if I can manage 5 of these in a week, anybody can manage any number of these.
Atheist Chico was like, you already made me mad.
I gagged.
Zactoguru actually has a really good point. Raz, you have access to all the equipment and software you need. Just make the video. It's true.
Well, yes, but like effort though, and like
Put forth the effort. It's a really bad habit to not put forth effort. So, that said, next we also have Aaron, who is our semi-permanent house guest.
Semi-permanent? Can I be?
I was going to say she wants to be here permanently. Okay.
Well, semi-permanent in the same way that I'm semi-permanent. I'm permanently there, except I'm currently over here for a week.
I mean, that is fair.
That is fair, yeah. Yep, nope. I'm Aaron. I run Aaron's chair. Zactor Guru, just be permanent. I'm trying. These are good people. I love these people. They be awesome. As I say. Anyway, I'm Aaron's chair. I do disability awareness, atheist content, and just a couple other things. In between, I try to mix the two mostly.
Blank words.
Words ran away.
Fair enough. Also, we did just recently do a collaboration where Aaron helped me with the celery juice debunking, and as a result, everybody has that lovely nightmare video that they can appeal to at any point.
Adorable. Nightmare, it's adorable.
It is adorable, but it also is nightmare.
Are you sure?
I am 100% certain.
Because, I mean, it had me rolling on the floor laughing, so it can't be too
Oh, if somebody doesn't believe that it's nightmare, I'll gladly pull it up right now. Except
Oz says that I should make you do the video for me.
No, I do. I already do 5. You can do it. You haven't done your video, and you've been working on it for almost a month. You can manage it. Trust me, it's not hard.
People are like, what nightmare? I saw the video, but I don't remember the nightmare.
Oh, people don't remember the nightmare? Give me just a second. We're gonna
also, thanks to our channel artist for making this. She put time and effort into this.
So we're gonna go here.
Juice us, Daddy.
There's your nightmare fuel for the day. So thank you very much to Gaelic Knox Emmett for making that. She's a wonderful girlfriend, and she is also a wonderful artist. She is also wonderful at creating absolute nightmare.
Especially the Rule 63 one. Where's the hammer, right?
Now I will say this. There's 2 very distinct types of nightmare that I deal with in my life. There's the nightmare that Emmett gives me, where she creates nightmare, and then there's a nightmare that Raz gives me, which is attempts to wake Raz up, leading in being suffocated.
Okay, look, it's not that bad, okay?
What happens when I try to wake you up? Your arms go out, you get a hug, and then I don't get to move.
You've even done it to the Ripidip.
Yes, she's even done it to the dog. So, that's Chemo Maggie says, now I need a shower. My sewing room is going to be haunted by celery. So, question in the chat. Should I make that video public so anybody can watch it whenever they want without having to also watch the full video with the full collaboration video? Just a 3-second thing so you can send it to people whenever you want. Is that a thing I should do, or should I keep it on unlisted where I have it as a special hidden weapon? That said, while you guys delineate over that in the chat, it looks like it's yeses.
Yeses.
And a hello.
It looks like it's yeses and a hello from Callan. Cirrus, is that one of the problems of being a hobbit?
Okay, look. Okay, it started off because, like, he used to have this really bad habit of being like, hey, yeah, let's just sleep for 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. So now, whenever he tries to wake my ass up, I just go, can I get a hug first? And he gives me a hug. And then I yeet him into bed with me and just hold him there because I am stronger than him, and I keep him there.
Yeah. It's not untrue.
And I did the same thing with Ripley. Ripley tried to come into the room to wake me up and, like, lick my face, and I just, like, wrapped my arms around her chest, rolled over with her, and just held her.
All right. That said, now that we know that Pam will literally grab people and suffocate them in their sleep.
Or in her sleep.
In her sleep, yes. Suffocate them in her sleep.
You said their sleep. She's not suffocating people in their sleep. She's suffocating people while she's asleep.
Smitty, it's Ripley from the Alien franchise, which is what Ridley from Metroid is named after. There is no Ripley in Metroid. Sorry, my Nintendo nerd came out and got very passionate for a minute there. It's like how I've been playing through Resident Evil 2, and every time there's something that's slightly different to the original, my brain just kind of like does a quick double take. It's just like, that's not how that's supposed to be.
And yes, I am very, very strong, Cat.
It's true.
Ripley can pull
Gotcha.
Aaron, and Ripley can pull Cirrus a bit, but Ripley cannot pull my ass.
Ripley just pulled me like across the just.
Yes, Smitty, I would highly recommend for Metroid, if you have a GBA still, pick up Zero Mission if you haven't already. If you've got access to a SNES, play Super Metroid for fun. That said, also Atheist T-Girl's doing a flirt with you.
Because I flashed a muscle at him because they were like, ooh, a strong panda. And I was like, yeah.
Excellent says, yo, Cirrus, need to escape Yeats, come back. Belvedere, what are you even barking at? You're sitting on a couch, looking at a wall. There's nothing there. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is going to be an interesting episode filled with many a dog bark. Oh, there's a truck coming down. That's why. The truck exists.
Girls I love being flirted with. Flirt with me all you want. I don't care. He doesn't care. She doesn't care. Emmett doesn't care.
Yeah. Also,
This.
Excellence says if I can come down Atlanta, if you're willing to spar, I'm willing to do practically anything there. That's my preferred method of working out. All right. Anyway, with that out of the way, so we have why the Bible allows forced sex in marriage, which I'm sure everyone is incredibly happy that we're covering because this site is horrible. And we've been able to avoid doing this site for a few weeks, so we're back into the madhouse. That said, Atheist Heroes says, I really wasn't about Cirrus. I figured I could take him, but your muscles. Oh my gosh.
I have the most underwhelming muscles.
All right.
I can kind of pick up my dog, but it is a fight. She's
Nah, Ripley's a small bean. You could just pick up Ripley. Just boop.
Ripley's heavy for me, okay?
Fair.
I could never pick up like Nadia.
That's fair. Nadia, by the way, is the German Shepherd here. If you can see her over there. She's a large bork. Like, what, 140 pounds of large bork?
Yeah.
She's big.
He's about twice Ripley's size, 3 times.
Yeah. All right. Now, let's go ahead and get into this article and probably hurt ourselves in the process because I don't see any way that this can be done otherwise. So, we'll start out. I will read this paragraph, and we'll just read paragraph by paragraph. It'll be me, Roz, and then Aaron. And obviously, as we find pieces that we hold contention with, so the entire fucking article, then we will start and figure out what contentions we have with what's said. So, if you find something that you have an issue with, just say pause. Or scream, because that's likely going to happen too involuntarily.
I also hope that nobody cares, but like I'm going to eat cookies while we're doing this because comfort.
As long as we don't hear the crunching in the microphone, we're fine.
Well, you're going to hear some tearing. That's why I said it.
You might. I'll wait. Like,
Yeah.
all the things that were not prepared ahead of time. Okay, starting out. We are starting out. Is forced sex in marriage wrong? If you are like most American Christians, your gut answer would be yes. Of course, the Bible says it's wrong. Up until very recently, I used to think the answer was yes as well. But as God began to peel back my American cultural presuppositions, I realized the answer might be something other than what I was comfortable with.
In my last article entitled, It is not a woman's consent that matters, it is God's, I prove from the scriptures that God does not allow a woman to say yes to sexual relations to a man she is not married to, and he does not allow her to say no to sexual relations to her husband whom she is married to.
No is always an acceptable answer to sex.
Yes. So, like, the idea that a woman who's not married can't say yes, like, can't consent, and that she can't say no in marriage, means that by this perspective, all sex outside of marriage is rape, and all sex inside of marriage cannot be rape. That's not how any of this works, and every single time that I read an article from this person, I am more and more convinced that they are doing something horrible to their wife. That means Aaron is up next unless we have more contentions, which I'm sure they're there.
But this raises another question for those Christians who accept that the Bible calls it sin for a woman to sexually refuse her husband. What if a woman does refuse her husband? Can the husband, under God's law, physically force himself upon his wife who sinfully resists him? No.
Sinfully resists!
Sinfully resist. If it says sinfully resist, the answer is in the paragraph.
Okay, so let me get this right. It's sinful to lust in any capacity, but it's sinful not to lust if it's your husband and or person.
Yes, and considering that Raz here is asexual, that means that because by biblical definitions, we technically would be married because we've been living together for years. So the mere act of her saying no to me would be considered sinful and against God when she's asexual and mildly sex repulsed. That's not a thing that she likes to do.
Secondly, again, let's get back on the word no. No means no in any sexual encounter. No means no in everything else, but no means no in any sexual encounter. So when you say, no, I don't want sex, you are saying, no, do not put your genitals near my genitals, not happening.
You know, this is really weird to talk about. Okay.
What?
Something that we've had a previous conversation about that I don't know if she's comfortable sharing with the rest of the class.
Fair enough. This is fair, and we will go ahead and not dwell on that because I know what you're talking about now that you've worded it in such a way. Otherwise, whispers will be shared with the rest of the class. I'm kidding.
Do those have to be shared with the rest of the class also?
Would you like to read the note that you just gave?
Anyway.
Oh, you have to read the note yourself.
Yes. So, here are some answers. I'll go ahead and read the next one as well. Here are some answers I have given on this blog in the past. In one of the most popular articles on this blog, 8 Steps to Confront Your Wife's Sexual Refusal, I wrote this. I have not, nor would I ever advocate for a husband to force himself physically upon his wife or to physically abuse her in any situation. The issue being discussed is how a husband can confront a wife who chronically or willfully denies his sexual rights in marriage.
You don't have sexual rights. Stop it.
Without just cause, be it legitimate health or mental condition. You don't need just cause. If you don't want to have sex, you don't have to have sex. Nobody has a right to your body. Stop this stupid shit. He has the right. No, he doesn't. Both under biblical law, which doesn't matter, as well as under American law. No, the fuck you don't. To reason with his wife and to try to convince her to willfully, even if grudgingly, yield herself to him. That's still rape. And thereby fulfilling one of her most important duties in Christian marriage. Apparently, she's just a penis glove box.
Ugh. Okay.
You've got words.
I have words.
Okay.
Not nice words.
Can I, on topic but off topic, there is a conversation happening in the chat that I was trying to clarify. And it was from Smitty, who says that we should not have gotten married and should break up because we're not sexually compatible. It's not that we're not sexually compatible. I find him very attractive. because I was raped in my past, my body rejects the idea of sex. It is why I found out that I'm asexual, because of the multiple rapes, on top of being sexually
Smitty was talking
repulsed
about the
with-
Christian. Smitty was talking about the Christian.
He was?
Yes. He just clarified that.
Okay, there we go. I was like, I'm confused, and I think we're all confused, so I'll just go ahead and say my part and then clarify. No, yeah, agreed. They should just get a divorce.
Yeah, no. And what's funny is that the Christian who's made biblical gender roles has one divorce before this. And in that divorce, he mentions how that wife was able to take his physical abuse and therefore she was compatible with him, and his current wife isn't as compatible with taking his sexual abuse. But yeah, no, that I see how some of that could have gotten misconstrued.
Because like we were having a conversation and then just like that, and I was like, oh, okay, so I need to clarify. Not a problem.
There are cases in which divorce is permitted by the Bible, just in case anybody is wondering.
I believe adultery is one of the big ones. Adultery is one of the big ones.
Yeah, because my adopted mother is now currently getting a divorce.
Because her good Christian husband did a cheat?
Her good Christian husband did a cheat. A lot of cheat.
Yay. Don't you just love Andersonites? Oh, wait, is she an Andersonite or a Powlite?
Pal.
Okay. Because I know that there's functionally no difference between the two. But
there's a little bit of a difference.
The difference is that one of them's a little more stupid. And the jury's out on which.
How's at least he does preach a little bit more on being a little bit politer.
Really? Because I don't think child slaughter's polite.
To other people. He preaches to be polite to like other people, to show them the good Christian way.
The good Christian way that involves slaughtering children. Sorry, I don't buy it.
Let's not get into that.
Like, sorry, me and Powell don't get along.
I don't get along with any of them. Let's be real.
True. All right. Next part is Pam's. If you can read for the class.
Yeah. Give me a shot.
Just give you a second.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Pam. I know my reading part is coming up. Cookie.
Not wrong.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Pam. I know that I have a stream today. Sleep.
And in my article entitled The Rape Straw Man, I stated, biblically speaking, there's no such thing as marital rape. However, there is such a thing as physical abuse. While the Bible does not speak specifically to the case of a man forcing himself on his wife, I believe it is a case of physical abuse. So what others call rape, I call abuse. In the same way that when someone is wrongfully killed, it might be first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or manslaughter. What we call physical abuse and what we call rape is dependent on the relationship between the man and woman in question. There is no doubt a wrong has been committed, but what we call it and how it is punished or dealt with is different depending on the circumstances. What the fuck? No, no, no. There is such a thing as marital rape. It's called, I get married to someone, I say no, and he does it anyway.
So I think that the only reason that this person says there's no such thing as marital rape is so they can get around the very real problem of marital rape by simply denying its existence and just calling it physical abuse. However, by calling it physical abuse, they put themselves in a situation where they're allowed to say, oh, well, he didn't physically harm you, therefore he didn't physically abuse you, because he circumvented the rape issue. And because he said it was strictly physical, he's ignored the emotional, psychological side of abuse, which I will argue day and night is worse than physical.
You know what's really fucking me up here, though, is that he's trying to compare it with the types of murder, whether it's accidental or not, manslaughter or not. It all has to do with intent. Intent is the difference in those.
I mean, the sex can be killer, but it doesn't mean you should compare sex to murder.
Here's my question with him. Because this is a stupid, first off. Secondly, getting back to the intent thing. You don't intend to kill somebody if it's manslaughter. There was an accident. However, it is still anger, usually. There are some cases where that obviously is bypassed, where it's like, I pushed somebody, they fell, and they died. And it was an accident. or I pushed somebody out of the way, they fell and died, you could still get charged with manslaughter.
Or if you happen to like run over them in the dead of night, something like that as well is usually considered.
Whereas like there was an accident that happened and they happened to die and you couldn't account for them dying.
Manslaughter is the lack of intent, but first and second degree have things to do with intent. Everything has to do with intent.
Exactly. So when you sit there and you go, it's not marital rape. Are you intending to get sex by force? Yes. Are you married to this person? Yes. Congrats. You can now be charged with marital rape, which is a completely different crime and actually in some states holds more punishment than just rape, because your partner is now putting their trust in you for life in some cases.
And you took advantage of that and you were like, well, you know what? My dick's hard. Make it wet, bitch. Like, excuse me? I'm sorry. If I had a partner that said that to me, I can't tell you how fast my ass would be in jail and his ass would be a woman.
Yep.
His ass would be a woman?
Yes, I would cut his penis off.
That's not what I thought at all.
Can we? Okay, so let's. No, stop it, Pam. Public, do not incite violence. Stop. I understand you're mad. I'm mad too. This person doesn't deserve to have a spouse. Stop it.
At DB Cisco, there are some that do. And then some that just...
At least, you know, when atheists abuse people, they don't try to call their sky daddy and be like, oh, it's his fault. He made me do it. It was his Bible.
Now, usually there's some other mental thing that we can appeal to whenever you're trying to deal with abuse when it's an atheist. Well, even then, atheists can be spiritual, so they can still say that like a higher power that isn't necessarily a god appealed them. You can still have that.
And no, Robert X, men are not just the abusers. There are women who abuse their husbands, or women that abuse their wives, men that abuse their husbands. People abuse people. In this specific instance, however, we're talking about a man, because I believe it's a man that wrote this article, right?
Yes,
it is.
Man.
So this gentleman wrote this article trying to defend the marital rape of his wife. And in this case, yes, he is the abuser. I know some people that have had wives that have been abusers or girlfriends, you know, crazy ex-girlfriend stories.
I have so many crazy ex-girlfriend stories.
But we're just talking about in this specific instance, the difference of male abuse and how we take that.
And nobody said abuse is only bad if you invoke a deity. There's a difference between abuse that is linked to something mental where you can actually reason the person and say, hey, you're doing something wrong. Because there are some people who are abusive who don't realize they're being so. They might have grown up in this environment and this is what they've dealt with. These people are still abusing. It's still wrong. It's still bad. It still needs to be addressed. But it can actually be reasoned with better than somebody who's, say, appealing to a Bible that's supposed to be inerrant. Nobody at any point here has said abuse is only bad if you invoke a deity.
No, I was pointing out the fact that when religious believers are an abuser and you call them out, they tend to just go, but my sky daddy.
Yeah, you can't just... It's a lot harder to reason with somebody when they're going to make an appeal to divine authority than it is to reason with somebody when they're left with only their own autonomy.
Okay. Quick Aaron tidbit. To DB Cisco. All abusers, regardless of sex and gender identity, are in the wrong. What we're pointing out is that in some cases it's, gentleman was used very loosely. But regardless of sex or gender identity, all abuse is wrong. It's just that when you get into people who are religious and abusers, a lot of cases are, it was my sky daddy. It was, the goddess has stated you're cursed. I can think of numerous religions or numerous statements where abuse was justified by a deity. Now, when it comes to atheists abusing, usually, in most cases, I'm not talking about the spiritual ones. We can look at mental situations, and they can blame like, oh, well, I thought this was normal. This is how I grew up. Oh, I thought, or oh, I have, antisocial personality disorder. I've got this. And we get to that. And then people who are spiritual, they can still blame a higher power. So
you're also leaving out but it's her fault or it's his fault.
There is also that. So abuse is wrong regardless of the reasons. It's just what the reasons are.
Change and vary.
So we're not saying it's only abuse if you invoke Sky Daddy or whatever. It's abuse regardless. But I'm just pointing out many reasons I've heard.
Yeah, my issue is that I've almost always had an easier time letting somebody know that they're being abusive and actually seeing some type of result come out of it that's positive when I'm dealing with someone who isn't going to appeal like the person in this article is appealing to a higher power. Because as soon as they're appealing to that higher power, anything I say gets thrown by the wayside because who am I to question God at that point? Whereas if I'm just questioning them, we're on even footing. And if they don't think we're on even footing, then there's some other issues that need to be addressed there, like possibly narcissistic tendencies.
And DB Cisco, your wife nobody is ever justified in abusing anybody. That's the thing.
Nobody has said that your wife was justified in hitting you. Not a single person has said that.
Nobody has said that. Nobody has the justification to hurt anybody.
Ever. It is never okay to hurt another person.
It's never okay to hurt another person. It's never okay to hurt a living being. It's never okay to do any of this crap that this author puts out.
So, that said, we will continue the conversation on here.
And it will be Aaron's turn.
Nobody has said religion's worse than sociopathy. Okay. I'm going to stop responding to DB Cisco only because they are bringing up things that haven't been said. Religion is not worse than sociopathy. One, because religion does not imply God belief. First of all, God belief is theism. Religion is separate. You can have atheistic religions. So, no.
On another note, I just got an email that you're live, Cyrus.
Oh, neat.
You're up.
Yeah, speaking of me being live, Aaron, it's your turn.
The emergence of the Me Too movement led me to reconsider my understanding of what the Bible says about sexual consent. I've been poring over the scriptures for the last couple of months. I'm being sarcastic, sorry. Really asking God to reveal me any presuppositions or cultural biases I might have on the subject. And I've written many articles related to sexual conduct from a biblical perspective recently. My last article, It's Not a Woman's Consent That Matters, It's God, that's a lie, not only traced the wicked origins of modern American sexual consent ideology, but more importantly, it laid the foundation for a biblical view of when God consents to a man and woman entering into sexual relationships. Lies. Anyway.
I would just like to point out that Chemo Mackie has the best safe word in the world.
Yes.
Prolapsed rectum. That almost sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
Does not sound like a Harry Potter spell.
I like how Excellence is just like, that's not a safe word, that's a goal.
I like how Ripley's just looking at us like, what?
The dog is just like, what? Now, so this part right here actually perfectly represents exactly what we were having the conversation about just a few sentences ago, where when somebody says, I'm appealing to God, I'm seeing that it's not a woman's consent that matters, it's God's consent. This is the higher power thing. This is the reason it's hard to reason with somebody when they have this type of mindset. Because when you're trying to let them know that they're abusing somebody, and they go, well, my wife, if you say, did your wife give consent? And they go, well, it's not my wife's consent that matters, it's God's consent. Now we have an issue where now I've got to try to take down their God, which is on this pedestal over here as far as they're concerned. As far as I'm concerned, they're like here-ish, somewhere below the ground. But I've got to somehow pull that God from here down to here in order to reason with this person. So.
And let's get into into that, it's like, okay, if my consent doesn't matter if I were to marry somebody. That doesn't matter. Now it's a deity who I don't have belief in. Okay, that's not how that works, first off. Secondly, to sit there and say that their consent over my body is more important takes away my humanity. And last I checked, my partner and I both bleed. Your God does not.
Yep. To kind of fill in while he's running back. What I don't understand is why is, and somebody pointed this out, is why he's trying to justify this when in a court of law it doesn't stand. If I had a husband that was very, we'll call him like whatever this dude is, I'm guessing Christian because he's identifying God as God instead of Allah or something else. So if I had a Christian or theist husband and he was saying this stuff to me and he harmed me and committed marital rape and my ass took him to court and he tried to pull this bullshit, this shit wouldn't stand in court.
It used to be able to. It used to actually be able to stand in court here in America,
but it doesn't anymore.
It does not stand in court, and in fact, a lot of police officers, judges, and jurors, from what I have personally seen, note anecdotal evidence is not evidence, but from what I have seen, a lot of them will laugh you out of the courthouse now because it is such an admissible testimony that a lot of people just find it humorous to hear.
And honestly, I would too. Like, there was actually a Twitter conversation that I had today where someone was trying to tell me, it was me and Jim Majors were talking with this person.
By the way.
And they were desperately trying to get me to, or they were desperately trying to tell me that the Bible is the ultimate authority. I need to believe the Bible. And I asked them, can you prove that without the Bible? And so they quoted more Bible verses at me. And then finally, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I asked you to do this without the Bible because otherwise it's circular. Now that we're in this situation where you're still doing this, why are you being dishonest? Why are you not answering this properly? And then they said that basically if you don't believe, you'll burn in hell. And I went, oh, believe or burn? So now we have a threat. They're like, that's not a threat, Snowflake. And I'm like, if I held a gun to your head and I said, bow or be shot, is that a threat? The fact that I gave you an easy way out does not make it not a threat. Believe or burn does not make it not a threat. So, no, it's...
I agree with what Robert X says with, I agree, nobody should harm another person, ... unless they agree on it.
True, but even then, you're getting into BDSM culture where you've got sadism and masochism to play into, and then you've got consent. If you've got consent, and it's not been consent that's been forced, then you're fine. Break out the whips and chains and the hot candle wax and trying to
Just
think of the other...
remember to have a safe word.
Yeah, as long as you've got a safe word and you have consent, I'm not going to kink shame you. Whatever gets you off, whatever. I don't care. As long as you're not hurting anybody, then I'm fine. So, Smitty says, that's not a choice, that's an ultimatum. I forget which... Wasn't that from the Cell Saga? I want to say that's from Cell Saga. But, you know, that's pretty much... Ultimatums aren't choices, and I stand by the thought process that anybody that gives an ultimatum deserves to lose the ultimatum in almost all circumstances. If you say you do from DBZ Abridged, that's why it makes sense. I forgot who's the actor for Son Gohan in DBZ Abridged because I know Masako does Goku. Anyway, tangential completely. I love Dragon Ball Z Abridged. I'm sorry. So we go to the next part. Because of what God revealed to me through his word in that study as of today, I am officially changing my position on the issue of forced sex within marriage. My new position is as follows. Okay, guys. Here it is. Forced sex within marriage by a husband towards his wife is not in it of itself a sin, but it can be a sin under certain circumstances. Hashtag not all. The Markland letter case, which I addressed in my article, It's Not a Woman's Consent That Matters, It's God, where the man forced sex on his wife after surgery, would be an example of a husband sinfully forcing himself on his wife. No. I disagree. Any forced sex within marriage or otherwise, is wrong. This is the issue I have with sin. So, okay. I would like to get, first of all, Pam, what is your definition of sin? What is your working definition of that word?
The only definition I know is what the Bible entails, which is basically anything God doesn't like.
What about you, Aaron?
Sky Daddy doesn't like this, so I shouldn't do it.
My definition of sin, the working definition I've always worked with, is anything that's considered an affront to God, or anything that's considered offensive to God is a sin. So,
If your God does not find forced sex offensive, fuck your God.
I'm gonna
Actually,
say it.
don't.
I'm going to say, no, it's pertinent. If your God wouldn't want it and he finds it offensive, then offend him twice. I will say it again. If your God does not find forced sex offensive, fuck your God. End of story. If you're a Christian and you think that if you think your God finds forced sex offensive, then fine, we're okay. As long as your version of God does not make you have apologetics for horrible misdeeds, we're fine. But if your version of God allows for forced sex, then fuck him. Very simple, very plain. I know that there are several, I've had several episodes on my channel where some people have said that I'm not hard enough on Christians. I'm hard on harm. I don't care about Christians in and of themselves. I care about people who cause harm. It's the same issue I have when it comes to any religion. If you're a Muslim, if you're a pagan, if you are a Christian, if you do not cause harm and you do not appeal to your religion or appeal to your God as an apologetic for causing harm, then we are fine. We are good. We are 100% okay. But if you are this guy, and this is the God that you serve, fuck you and fuck your God. Plain and simple. That is
demonetization. Yeah.
If it gets demonetized, I don't care, because here's the thing. I get demonetized if the whole channel gets demonetized, yeah, that would suck. But if this one video gets demonetized when the purpose of this is not just to make money for myself because living, but also to stop some of this harm, I'm willing to take that collateral damage. I don't care. I've taken that collateral damage on other videos that I've made, knowing full well that they would be hit by demonetization and I still made them anyway because I wanted whatever message I had to say to get out. It wouldn't be the first time. It won't be the last time. Pam, you look very bored. Are you ready for your part?
I want you to read this part right here because I'm gonna read this next portion.
Okay, so am I reading down to here or down to here?
You're down to there.
Okay. Now, a lot of Christians at this point are shutting me down, but I want to encourage you and challenge the view you've been raised with in our culture with what God's word actually says on this very controversial subject. And the cracked knuckles appear.
I have words for this one, so.
In their article entitled, "What Does the Bible Say About Spousal Marital Rape?" blah, 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 states, spousal or marital rape is a form of domestic violence and sexual abuse. In spousal rape, sex is forced upon one spouse by the other. While the Bible does not specifically deal with spousal rape, it has plenty to say about the husband and wife relationship and its representation of Christ in the church, Ephesians 5:32. And God never condones rape.
Wrong.
What?
Wrong.
What?
You freaking. I'm gonna become a liar because I don't know if he's like purposely being wrong. Okay. Here's what I have to say.
You got words. I want words.
Your God does condone rape in many cases. Do you really want me to go through them? Kill all the men, but kill the men and children, but take the the virgin women.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was talking about with Jill, because Jill defended that. He's like, but they're not, children, but it explicitly states young virgin women or girls, and you take them by force because the specific Hebrew word is used in the terminology of forced. God never condones rape. You're literally putting them into a marriage that's consummated by force in most cases.
Not to
Or
mention,
you forcefully molest them to find out they're virgins.
not to mention, we've also got the entire scenario where if a girl gets raped by a man, then he doesn't get punished outside of having to pay 50 shekels of silver as a bride price in order to buy her after raping her. This is also not including the fact that he only gets punished by death if the woman is married, because that is a property crime.
And let's also go through that if he doesn't choose to buy the woman he raped, the family could have disowned the woman because she was property. She was there to be sold.
Sullied property at that point. Sullied property.
Sullied property. So if you want to go, God never condones rape, we just pulled so many fucking examples of God condoning rape.
And at that point, the only way that somebody can appeal against that is by saying that, well, technically it didn't condone rape. I'm sorry, but
that is still condoning.
It's still condoning. If you have to go to a
pulls
technicality.
Up a good point. The woman who is married is killed if she was raped.
Yeah.
The woman in question is murdered because she was raped.
There's only one scenario where that happens, and that's if she was complicit in it.
But it's like, okay.
I hold my stance as usual. If the Christian Bible is so fucked up that it's bad, I don't need to misrepresent it for it to be fucked up. From what I understand, the situation where the woman gets killed is in a situation of adultery, not rape. Because
how can you tell the difference?
You can't tell the difference because in the Bible, rape is only found if the woman screams, and there's thousands of instances where the woman can't scream. That is a valid point. However, simply saying it flat out without the context, I will at least vie for accurate representation if I'm going to knock something down.
Like, oh my God, her mouth was covered. He shoved her face in like hay and shit, and it muffled. And oh my God, nobody heard it. Now she's complicit.
Yes. Also, we have a super chat from Gaelic Knox Emmett saying many cute faces. Well, you're dating two of those cute faces, so I would hope so.
There's only two cute faces, though. 1, 2.
You know that shit I do to Ripley?
Yeah, no, Crystal's right. Somebody has to hear the girl who's being sexually assaulted for it to be considered rape.
Yes, she has to scream, and there has to be a witness to the scream. She can't just say that she screamed later on down the road. Also, I believe there's also stipulations for, like, she has to be out in the field and stuff like that. And
yeah, she can't be in a home.
Yeah, and so there was somebody who actually fought with me on this topic at one point, and they were like, so think about it. For what reason would a woman go out into a field? And I'm just like, that sounds a whole lot like, look at her clothes.
That's exactly what that sounds like.
That's like, that doesn't sound any different to me than that.
It's like, oh, you were raped? What were you wearing?
Yeah. No, that
well,
sounds
if you knew that part of town was bad, why did you walk it?
Yeah, no, and at that point, it's like, okay, well, why is that part of town bad? Oh, because there are bad people there. Well, if they weren't bad people, then it wouldn't be a bad part of town. Do not... It's almost like I had an entire video recently about not blaming abuse victims.
Right?
Holy shit. Anywho.
And secondly, here's a very interesting fact. Yes, in a sexual assault case, we do actually have to ask, why were you wearing such and such? Here's the reason. We are then trying to prove the issues, not on your side, but trying to blame you most. At least me. I can only really speak for me. I'm not trying to blame you. I'm turning around and trying to figure out what the fuck was going through the asshole's head. I'm not trying to say it's your fault. I'm trying to see, okay, you're wearing this. Why is the guy an asshole? And
yeah, but now you're taking into semantics. The generalization is that people who go, you know, what were you wearing, or what part of town were you in? You knew what you were doing. You knew what you were wearing. You didn't have pepper spray, you didn't have a knife, you didn't have any self-protection, it's your fault.
Yeah, and a lot of times, here's an interesting fact. So, what were you wearing? Most sexual assault victims weren't wearing anything that could be like considered super sexy. It's that they were easy to get off.
Yep.
Okay, if it's tight clothing, it's harder to get off, and it actually helps you because it gives you more time to fight. Now you're providing resistance. They can't get control. Now, if you didn't fight hard enough. If it's harder to take off, you've gotten something. This is more of a risk than if I were to wear like a really tight tank top.
Okay, so there is a distinction I just pointed out, or not just pointed out, just wanted to read to clarify. So the out in the field has only to do with a virgin. That has only to do with somebody who's not married. If the woman is married, then there are laws for rape within the city. However, the laws for rape within the city do have to do with whether or not they cried out. Deuteronomy 22. If there's a girl who is a virgin engaged to a man, and another man finds her in a city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate in the city, and you shall stone them to death. The girl because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he has violated his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. So if she doesn't cry out, it's considered adultery. She is killed. And it can happen within the city, not just out in the field. I only say that because Scotty Rose said, "I'm sorry, but from one atheist to another, y'all sound a bit ignorant on the subject, so I wanted to go in and make sure that I was right." Turns out, little right, little wrong. So I'll go ahead and take the L for that one, which is fine.
I was never Christian. I am still learning quite a bit about how heinous the Bible is.
It's always a fun subject. We need to get a couple New American Standard copies to go through, just because that's the most accurate translation I know of. Because King James is not.
King James just. The source always has to deal with when I learn something about the Bible that makes me go.
All right.
That's what I was saying, Scotty. That's what I was saying. It's like this is going to generally be more of a target.
Instead of this, which is really tight and tugs at my skin.
Because women who wear tight clothes, getting those things on.
I would like to point out that we are probably the perfect example of this. She is the weaker of the two in both clothes, physical form. So she's more likely to get raped than I am. Because I look like I could knock somebody out in a single hit. She looks like you could break her arm by stepping on her.
So she says she looks like she could knock somebody out in a single hit. I'm going to go ahead and say that she can, because the last time we were playing D&D, my character pissed her character was a monk, by the way. My character pissed her character off enough, she ended up hitting my character and rolled highest damage. My character was a wizard. No armor class, no health. My character got one shot by a party member. So
my character laughed.
But like it's the difference in how our culture is. The rapists that are predators are going to look for like the smaller people, the ones that don't look like they can defend themselves, the people wearing looser clothes. And the reason I'm specifically saying people is because women do that too. Women will look at the smallest male that she can find and she'll go, I want him. And I can take him because I know I'm stronger than him. And that's exactly the predatory thinking that works on a woman's side of things. Like, it's not just for, men going, aha, I'm a predator, I will take her, she's the weak link. It's also for women too. Because women can rape, and women have raped. It's not just a male thing to do.
And for anybody who doesn't think women can rape, go look at your sex offender list for your city and count how many women are on there. It's actually very shocking. Because before I got into where I am now, when I was like 13, I used to think women could never rape. Women could never hurt anybody. That's a sign of education and learning and growing, being an adult.
So, on to the next part, because there's enough dumb shittery in here to last for years. Says, I want to quickly address the terminology I'm using here. I'm using the phrase forced sex, and the gotquestions.org is using marital rape or just rape. The reason I'm using the term forced sex instead of rape is because the term rape in our language and culture not only denotes an action taking, but also implies a moral condemnation of that action. Calling forced sex rape in our language and culture would be like referring to every instance of killing as murder. No, it wouldn't. I'm going to speak more in the term of rape later in the article. No, forced sex is rape. The difference between murder and sex. You do not accidentally have sex unless you guys are like drunk. Like, you don't accidentally have sex. You can accidentally kill someone. You can accidentally get someone killed. This is why we had the conversation about manslaughter earlier. But accidentally having sex, only way that you can really do that is if you've got some alcohol involved. That's not a thing.
Then, like, now you've taken consent out of the picture for both parties. Like, and now it's one may want it, but one does not, and there's no communication. And it doesn't matter if the consenting one is the male or female. It's just now you have one person who wants it and one person who doesn't. Consent is no longer a thing that can happen. And now you've got a problem.
Because if you are both drunk, neither of you can consent. You have both.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
But you can't consent.
That's why I said one person wants it, one person may not want it. You know, consent is.
I don't think you can consent if there are drugs or alcohol involved on either end, because your mental faculties are impaired.
This is fair.
And that's just me.
And yes, Smitty, some drunk people can consent to have sex with one another. I'm not saying they can't. What I'm saying is now you have the issue with one person wants it and one person may not want it. They might want it, they might not. You can't really determine unless you're there at the scene and they say yes, or you have someone who has it on video, or someone was the designated driver and they overheard the conversation. Like, you have that issue because there's imperatives involved, or what's it called? Is it called imperatives? What's it called?
What are you trying to say?
Inhibitors?
Inhibitions?
Yes, that word.
Yes.
Yep, inhibitions, involved. And like I said, for me personally, I just don't think either. And I'm going to say this. I don't think either can consent because there is.
Smitty does bring up a good point, though. If you consent before getting drunk, like you're getting drunk to have drunk sex, and both of you know that.
Yes.
That's different.
That's different. You've consented while you had your mental faculties.
I'm saying if you are both drunk, right?
Basically, if you're both at a party, both of you get drunk,
then tried to decide to have sex. Yeah. There is no pre-consent.
Meditated.
There's also gray area in how drunk you are, because there are people who after 5 beers still have full control over their mental faculties, and there are people who after 2 are asleep on the couch.
That's why I'm saying like
drunk.
Drunk. You both are drunk and cannot and do not have control of your faculties. I am making the specification. I don't think people are understanding my specification. I don't think I'm wording it well enough. So that's on me. But if you were both too drunk where you cannot control your mental faculties, there's no consent.
What she's saying basically, Smitty, is that anything that can impair your judgment. You're
to the point of impaired judgment.
And you're to the point of impaired judgment. Then you get into that sticky scenario where one may consent when, it's not consent in her eyes, or neither person can consent, really. It's just kind of a mutual thing.
These are the reasons that these are some of the reasons that I don't drink. I like being in control of my faculties at all times.
I don't drink for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
I kind of drink, but I don't drink to the point of like running around being drunk and like slurring and shit. Like,
I've never actually seen you drunk.
Yeah, because I don't let myself get there. The last time that I went there, I got forced upon, which is why I'm an advocate for please don't be around other people, even the people you trust. Because, like, I was with someone that I trusted, and he took advantage of me after getting me drunk.
Usually in cases of assault or abuse like this, though, it's almost always someone that you know. Like, that's the scary part about this, is that usually it is someone that's close to you.
Last I saw the study, and I don't know if it's published to the public. I know I saw the study, which gets into, like, what I used to do. Last I saw, it's like 83.5% of crimes against another person, and I'm talking sexual assault, abuse, anything along those lines, is from somebody they know. Which I think the most recent one, the one before that was like 75%.
I want to look at that study. It's not that I don't believe you, because that sounds about like what I've heard. I just want to look at that study so I can have it as a source for a later video on this topic, because
I will see if I can get it from my old workplace.
That's fair. That said, we do have the next paragraph, which is on Bam.
Replying to someone, sorry. Biblically speaking, all instances of forced sex are not considered rape any more than the instances of killing are considered murder. It is the context which determines if a particular instance of forced sex is rape, just as the context which determines if a particular killing is murder. The only forced sex in the Bible ever condemns is forced sex outside of marriage. The Bible actually addresses forced marriage, and as a result of forced sex is in the book of Deuteronomy. So, you're telling me that if I were to marry Cyrus, that then I could do whatever I wanted to him and he could do whatever he wanted to me. But outside of marriage, it's rape. But it's rape either way. Like, you can't condemn one type of rape and then not condemn another type of rape.
Remember, you can't pull away the consent because of the parts you have between your legs.
Let me just get this straight, right? Okay, I was born a female. I've got female genitalia, and because of that, I am less than you, and your property is me, and you can take me, but I can't have my own autonomy to where I can just be like, no thanks, babe, not tonight. I'm not really feeling it, but like, tomorrow?
You see, this is the reason that this article bugs me, because to assume that somebody's rights are different than another based on birth is to assume that that person is less than you. Because if you're going to say that, oh, well, the rights to this person's bodily autonomy are their human rights, why are this other person's human rights different? Are they subhuman? Because that's the only way I can think of that they would have fewer human rights unless they willingly revoked those rights, which is something that happens when you get into, say, the prison system. You sometimes not really willingly, but you do revoke your rights when you get in there. But there are still some rights that you have, like some autonomy rights.
You still have some autonomy rights. You have rights to medical access, food, a bed. You still have some rights.
But
are all of your bodily autonomy rights there? No.
And what's funny, though, is that if we have this comparison where as soon as she gets married to me, then legally, according to biblical law, she starts being stripped of some of her rights. Now we've got this awkward scenario where marriage is prison.
No, marriage is prison. Because
it's prison for her. It turns me into a warden, apparently.
What?
Were you not paying attention to the conversation?
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. I was saying that it's weirdly analogous that prison is where you lose your a lot of your autonomy rights, and that this person is saying that you don't have those autonomy rights when you're married. So does that mean that marriage is analogous to prison in this scenario? And if it is, then does that essentially make me your warden at that point? And that's a very, very worrisome thought.
But prison is still better than biblical marriage, because at least in prison, you have bodily autonomy to not have sex if you don't want it. You don't have that in biblical marriage.
Well, you can still get raped in prison, and it depends on which prison system you're in, because the shitty thing is that in the American prison system, there are some prisons that the guards will turn their face to. Like,
Yeah, they
there have
will
been
just
cases
look the other way when that happens.
Yeah, like there have been instances where a child predator gets thrown into a prison and the guards notify a specific inmate on the down low, oops, slip of the tongue, and the guards turn a blind eye as the inmates who are already there for life, you know, in most cases, just go ham on this person that was a child predator. You know, like, I think that's right? No.
That's not right. But I'm saying you still, at least in prison, as far as the legal system goes, on like my end, or what used to be my end, but you still had rights as a human being. You still had rights, basic human rights. Those rights were, if you didn't want sex, you didn't want sex. That was the end of that. You know, you didn't consent to certain medical things, you didn't do certain medical things. You still had some rights of your body. Were some of your rights still stripped away? Yes. Because those rights that were stripped away were to keep people, you know, at least keep you safe, keep others safe, keep the prison guard safe. That's what is being stripped away, is to keep people safe. To keep everyone around you safe, because now you've been labeled dangerous. Mm-hmm. But you still had the rights to say, no, I don't want this done to my body. Did you still have to be in handcuffs? Yes. That you don't have that choice. But if you didn't want, you know, certain vaccinations in prison, well,
Sucks.
Some were required. Some are still required. But if it was like your flu shot, that's not a required vaccination.
I would still say that it as somebody who almost died from the flu, I do think that it should be required. That's just me.
As somebody who can't get the flu shot, I think it should be required.
Just like
but because it's currently not labeled a required vaccination, a prisoner can decline getting the flu shot. Where it's labeled a required vaccination, that's a different story.
Pointed out in the chat, Jeremy said, school is a privilege, not a right. And before you say it, education is a right, not school. I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair. We can revoke your privilege to school if you decide that you want to, you know, not vaccinate your kids. Because at that point, you're putting kids with autoimmune disorders in really, really awkward and dangerous scenarios. That said, we do have the next paragraph to get to, and that is Aaron. So we'll do that since there are a bunch of small ones.
I'll get to the 10.
Okay.
God granted the right of men to take women as one of the many spoils of war. I have words about that. As long as they were not of one of the 7 forbidden nations in which everyone was to be killed. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, not in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. Deuteronomy 20:14, KJV. In the next chapter, God details the process which men could take the women as spoils of war. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives as beautiful women, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife.
This is why the KJV is not a good translation, because that early modern English is hard as fuck to read.
My brain is confused.
So
I get the message. Just trying to.
The way that it's worded is just so unbelievably poor. So this is the article, or this is the set of verses that Pam had to listen to Jill spout, which is going to be part of her episode. This is the type of stuff that he was trying to say, oh, well, it's okay, because if you attacked a nation, then you used grabbing their wives and stuff, you grabbing them as your wife, you did that because women didn't have rights, and the only way to give them any type of like security was by marrying them. And so you would do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. So your perfect God set up a system where women didn't have rights, so that their autonomy has to be revoked in order to give them some type of security. That sounds like the most screwed up system I can conceive of.
Secondly, you have now called women spoils of war. That's literally what that says.
It just makes them objects at that point.
You've now taken away a woman's humanity. Because women are still human. There are inalienable human rights, like the choice over your own body. And you have turned them into objects. How is that a logical progression of anything?
Or how is it a moral progression? That's my question. Whether or not it's logical doesn't bother me at that point. My thing is whether or not it's moral, because there are moral things that can be considered illogical, and there are illogical things that can be considered moral. But in a situation like this,
it's not logical or moral.
Yeah, I don't see anything that makes this good. We have 12. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. After that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband. Go in unto her. We know exactly what that is. And be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. Let her grieve for a month, and then you can take her. It's cool.
Wait, you only slaughtered her entire family.
Yeah.
And all of her animals, and her entire town, and her best friends. You know?
But it's been a month. She's over it now. That's how grieving works.
Also, I would like, because in this section, you have only the virgins. How do you know they're a virgin? How could you determine that?
The only
line of thinking.
The only way in ancient times they would have had would be of checking for a hymen, and for checking for a hymen, they would have to molest. And even then, the hymen's pretty fucking mythical, because it doesn't determine whether or not you have sex. There are people with broken hymens who have never had sex, and there are people with hymens intact who have had sex.
Yep. And it's just great. Now you've molested a child to determine if she is fit for marriage to you, of which you are going to consummate it. Because, can you scroll up a little bit? You kind of scrolled down on me. It says, and hast a desire unto her. So you find the one that you like, that your dick's hard for, and then you take her to be your wife. And so you shave her head, and you basically say, okay, you're mine, let's fuck. Whenever I want, you can't say no, and if you do, I get to beat you.
And
even then.
And then Scotty Rose pointed out...
Because they treat her like a slave because they shave her head, which is what they do to slaves.
And then Scotty Rose pointed out that they determined it by if a woman had kids, admitted being a non-virgin, or by age. So now we have a system where they can just lie to you in order to save their own lives, which causes its own issues. And two, because what woman wouldn't lie at that point in order to save her own life? I would prefer that they lied and saved their lives. But if a lot of it is also being determined by age, then at that point we have another scenario, another issue, where these are men who want to take a woman who's too young to marry. So during these times, we're talking about a 10-year-old. That's somebody that you might want for your wife. If you look at a 10-year-old and that's what you want, I'm just going to go ahead and say that maybe you should not marry anyone ever.
Don't.
And then when Scotty pointed out if she doesn't bleed on the honeymoon, she was killed anyways. Yes, that's the hymen thing. But the hymen's a fucking myth.
Well, okay. The hymen's a myth isn't what people think it is. The hymen itself exists.
Yes.
However, it is a protective lining around the opening that stretches when the woman is aroused. So what that means is it will move out of the way of the peen if the woman's actually aroused. And it'll just generally move out of the peen anyway. If you rip the hymen during sex, you're doing it wrong. Because it's not a membrane to burst. And to Kimbo, it's not biologically useless. It's there to help the vulva and the vagina self-clean. That's what it's there for. It's to help it clean itself. But it's not there to determine virginity.
We just pretend that it is because we have a horrible sexual education system.
It is there to help self-clean and self-lubricate. It is not there to determine virginity.
Yep.
All right, let me get finished with 14, then we move on to Pam. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. Basically, it's saying you can't sell used goods.
Yep.
And your new woman is a used good.
So, that leads us into the next paragraph, which is on Pam.
So in summary, God allowed men to take by force women as captives of war. However, unlike the nations around them, they were not allowed to have forced sex right there on the battlefield with their captive women. Instead, God had a higher standard. God made the Israelite men wait 1 month to allow the woman to mourn the death of her loved ones.
Arbitrary as fuck. So,
here's the
So
thing.
generous.
He's so generous at the fact that, like, they didn't just rape the little girls on the battlefield. They had to wait a month for them to fucking grieve about their entire town, and then they got to rape them. Great.
I know, a month is so generous.
Like, I'm sorry, but if she doesn't want to have sex, and she definitely doesn't want to have sex with the person who just killed her whole family, then it's just as immoral to take her on the battlefield as it is to force her into the home and have her stay there with the person who killed her family for a month before having sex with her. In fact, I would argue that in many cases, being forced to be with the person for a month and dread when they are going to have sex with you versus at least getting it over with on the battlefield, I would say that it's arguably more cruel and worse.
Well, yeah, because you have the shock factor. Like, if I was in this situation and I didn't have my previous experiences, like, if I saw somebody murder my entire family, my dogs, my cats, my cattle, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, the babies, like, if I saw people murdering my entire town and then they took me with them and then made me wait a month in solitude of them trying to feed me, they shave my head, they make me wear their clothes, that's way more cruel than I'm already in shock. My brain already isn't working in the moment on the battlefield. Like, it would be less cruel to just get it done and over with while I'm already in shock.
Instead of letting somebody come down from that high and then having them have to anticipate you taking them while they're sitting there questioning, why did you kill my dad? Why did you kill my sister? Why did you kill my brother? Why did you kill my mom? And then finally having to have sex with this person. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. God's higher standard here is not a higher standard. This higher standard here is actively more cruel and more damaging and more morally reprehensible than the other. They're both horrible. They're just horrible in degrees, and God's is worse. Next paragraph is Aaron.
Oh boy. Even after the month, the man had to take her as his wife, not simply his sex slave. Oh boy. So generous.
that's so much better because women had so many rights when they were wives.
As other nations also did. God commands them, thou shalt go in unto her, which is a euphemism for sex in the Bible. Yeah, we know. Now, some might say, well, that does not say for sex, it just says sex. And that is absolutely true. A man going in unto a woman does not denote whether or not it was forced or not. However, there is a key phrase at the end of this passage which does indicate forced sex. So it does indicate that this is rape because thou hast humbled her. So
you're a Christian and you're admitting to the fact that your Bible and your God told you that you humbled her, which means that you forced yourself on her.
Also,
that you had forced sex with this child. What the fuck? You're a Christian admitting to that. I need this audio for Jill's video.
So I'm going to go ahead and do a thing real quick. I'm gonna look at. So what are we looking at here? Deuteronomy 20:14. All right. So the next portion is going to be Aaron. While Aaron is doing that, I'm going to look up me 20.
There are many
14.
euphemisms for sex in the Bible. Men knew their wives. They lay with their wives. And as we can see here, they went in unto their wives. However, there is another euphemism for sex in the Bible that specifically denotes sex, which is rape. And that is the humbling of a woman by a man. This is the same phrase used when speaking of actions in the Bible actually considers to be rape as opposed to our modern understanding of all forced sex.
Then
Give me just a second to make sure that I'm looking. What? Hold on. So Deuteronomy 20:14. Okay, that's 21:10. Okay, I understand now. I see what happened. I made mistakes. So we're going to do this to fix those mistakes. Let's go back here.
he's currently looking it up.
Okay, so here is what the NIV says, which is a more easy to read translation. Let me see what other translations I might be able to look into for this one, just to see here. Aha. Okay, so let's look at a new standard version, NSRV, which is a little easier. Not easier, but it's better here. Deuteronomy.
It's 21. You're at 20.
Yep, Deuteronomy 21. 21. 4. Did you really? That's weird. It actually just, like, took away. Okay, you know what? We're going to do this. I know exactly how we're going to do this. Because it's being problematic. So we have this. We're going to try this one more time. Because this is getting really dumb. Does it? Okay, cool. But if you are not satisfied with her, you will let her go free and not sell her for money. You must not treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. Dishonored her. Okay, now, here's the next thing. What does dishonoring... Okay, Alexa, I didn't ask. I actually did not ask.
Alexa does that. It's very terrifying.
Yes. I can't find the actual portion on what dishonoring means in the specific sense, but I'm assuming that it means that when she's not a virgin anymore, that she has been dishonored at that point. I'm going to make the assumption that that is what it means. I could be wrong. If somebody in the chat can correct me on that, let me know.
I mean, considering the fact that it says, in most contexts, whenever it says that you have dishonored your family, it means that you have either done a myriad of things that have pulled shame onto your family, one of those being sex. So you have taken a person who is your wife and you have dishonored her because now you have not only forced sex on her, but you have also sent her free, basically to be a whore because that's all she's good for now.
Like,
because you can't get money off of her now.
Now she has to fend for herself, which is...
Yep, right here. Can I read this? I want to read this. Can I read this?
What? Oh, the thing that I just found?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, because thou hast humbled her means it must be owned is often used of unlawful commerce with a woman, of defiling her or violating her chastity, and so may seem to confirm the notion of those who think he lay with her before he took her to his house, and therefore upon refusal to marry her afterwards was obliged to this loss, though the word signifies any kind of affliction, as this was a very great one, a great mortification to her to be taken into his house, to have her head shaved, her nails pared, or suffered to grow, and her fine clothes changed for sword one, and all of this with a profession of a design to marry her, and yet after all was deceived and disappointed by him, wherefore such a conduct towards her, he was obliged to give her her freedom.
So, she is dishonored if her chastity has been violated, and her chastity is violated by simply having sex. So, yay. Ex-pastor here, stuff like this is what ended my Christianity from Scotty Rose. Well, thank you for the $2 super chat, Scotty Rose. And yeah, what's funny is that stuff like this isn't what ended my Christianity. I fell out of it fairly organically, and then I found out about all of this stuff when I became an atheist. Awkward. Very awkward to go back and look at this kind of stuff. It's bad. It's really bad. So, that said, we are...
At 23.
Okay. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband... What? Alexa, stop! Alexa, stop listening to me. Thank you. 23. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in a city, and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out into the gate of the city, and ye shall stone them with stones, that they die. The damsel because she cried not, being in the city, and the man because the man hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So if the man took the virginity and the chastity of his neighbor's wife, this is also a passage that we brought up earlier. Thou shalt put away the evil from among you. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then only the man that lay with her shall die. Why are you doing a bark? What do you gain from the bark? You gain nothing from this bark, doggo. Come here. Come here. Come on.
Hi, Dr. Obvious.
Hi, Dr. Obvious. You just muted my Alexa. Why are you doing it now, too? There's nobody here.
Oh, no, the one, like, bark. Every time he yells at Alexa, I'm just like, what did I do?
Oh, my gosh. 26. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is the matter. For he found her in a field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and then lie with her, and they are found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. So, if you raped somebody in biblical times, and they were not betrothed to anybody, so they were not beholden to someone else, they were not someone else's property, you had to pay the father of the family 50 shekels of silver, because they were the man who owned the daughter at that point, and after paying them that, you got to have the rest of your life with your rapist.
Yep.
Which is disgusting. That's disgusting.
Yep.
And he's not allowed to let you go.
Now, granted, if memory serves, there was a stipulation here. I believe there was a stipulation that the woman might be able to refuse, but that's something you have to read into the text to even see. I only say this because I remember Matt Dillahunty talking about this when he was talking about properly representing your opponent, and he said when you bring this passage up, there has been some argument among scholars how much autonomy the woman actually had in this situation. There are some people on one side of the fence that think that they have no autonomy and had to go with the rapist, and there are some scholars that think that the woman could actually say no to this because it does not say here that the woman had to accept the bride price or the woman had to accept her father's decision at this point. There is debate here, and I want to make that clear. It does not make either one of those scenarios good. They're both bad. One is arguably worse than the other, but I did want to let it be known that there is debate on this topic. So, I just wanted to make sure that that was known there, because I still stand, even though this crap is horrible, I still hold that you want to accurately represent whoever you're talking about. But That said, we have been going for almost an hour and a half, and I'm curious how much more we have to go. Oh. Oh my. So, I'm going to go ahead.
I guess this is the new series.
Not the new series. What it might be is that instead of Biblical Gender Roles 7, the next episode's going to be 6.5. Because there's way too much to get into this article, and this article in specific, I'd like to tackle everything in it and not just skip to the conclusion, which is normally what I do when I'm strapped for time. Because there's way too much in this article to go over, and I want to make sure.
It's all repetitive bullshit. It's just the Bible doesn't say you can rape your wife. Your wife can't say no, and so it's not rape. Like, I'm sorry, it's rape no matter how you put it. If she does not consent or they do not consent and you consent and you force it, you are the rapist. If you do not consent and they force it, they are the rapist. There is always a factor of rape.
Wait. Scroll up some. I'm gonna wait until he sees what I'm seeing, because it's a title.
The title.
Biblical sex is not just about giving, but also about taking.
Yeah, here's the thing: the woman gives everything, and the man takes nothing. That's what biblical marriage is.
You mean the woman gives everything, and the man takes everything?
Yeah, and the man gives nothing. I find that wrong.
So, are Christians' husbands wrong for demanding sex from their wives? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Do wives have to be agreeable to sex at any time?
No.
But God never forces himself on his wife. Bullshit! There's an entire part of the Bible where it makes the nation of Israel analogous to a woman, and it mentions how God will violate her.
That is an entire thing that I learned about. Was like,
I would highly recommend. What is the book title called? I have the book. Hold on. Let me go in here real quick. There is a book that tackles this. I would recommend reading it. And actually, Pam, I would recommend you reading it too if you want to laugh.
I want to laugh.
And you don't. Neither of you have to read all of it, but I would highly recommend reading some of it.
You know what? I think we should close out this live stream with a good notion, okay?
Well, that's fine, but the first notion is what this book is. It is by Dan Barker, and it is God, the most unpleasant character in all of fiction. I have the book. It is a good book. Would highly recommend reading it.
Consent is hot. I have to agree.
I'd say I don't find consent hot, just in the same way that I don't find non-consent hot. I find consent to be default.
So there's one thing that I want to leave this stream off with.
Mm-hmm.
There is only one type of rape I condone, and that is the rape of cookies.
Except there's only one problem. Cookies lack the capacity to consent or not, as they are not agents, therefore they can't.
Exactly. They can't consent.
They are not agents. You're in my wheelhouse now. This is the same reason rocks can't be atheists.
You want to bring this up? Okay. I think it's okay if it's food. Because, God damn it, I can't tell you how fast a cake has said no to me, and I fucking shoved my face in it.
If you heard the cake say no, I think we need to spend some money on a shrink. That's what all super chats that have gone in today are going to go towards getting Raz a shrink because she hears talking cakes. Speaking of super chats, we had one more from Scotty Rose, and this is the best their god could come up with. Agreed.
Everybody, today, in honor of the stupidity that it is this article, find yourself something that you like to eat and just go ham on it. Just.
So you mean like these guys?
Yeah, go ham on them.
That's it. So I know that we weren't able to get through the entire article. Next time we are going. Everybody here's talking cakes.
Yeah.
Dang it, Drake.
My back.
So that said,
I guess we need a shrink for me and Cirrus because I don't hear talking gay.
Okay,
probably.
great.
So, thank you guys for coming out so far. I know that this has been an interesting endeavor. Interesting is going to be used very loosely here. So, we're going to take off, and we're going to handle the rest of this next time in Biblical Gender Rule 6.5 next Monday. So, hope you guys enjoy. See ya.